This is the Arena Sports Network Scoreboard Show, the weekly comprehensive show that brings you all the high school and college scores and standings for Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. And now, to take you through all the scores, here's your host, Brian Snow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Arena Sports Network Scoreboard Show debut episode, and it's presented by the ASN Sports Travel Agency, the newest branch of the Arena Sports Network. Want to learn how to travel? Want to learn how to get paid for it? Go to thearenasportsnetwork.com/ASN Scoreboard Show. Click on the ASN Sports Travel logo, and you will get all of the information. Want to welcome everybody. This is our debut episode. Now, I've had so many questions. People ask me, why wait till now to debut the Scoreboard Show? Well, time is one reason. The second reason, it's a great time to put it in motion to debut for the state playoffs in Illinois and Indiana. And we got a lot of coverage of both the Illinois and the Indiana State playoffs. Get to that in a second. But speaking of playoffs, there was a little bit, of a classic game that happened this past Friday evening at Chicago State University between Whitney Young and Curie. And on the Gigahertz hotline with me right now is the fellow that will help tell the fans about it, because he was there as the public address announcer. I want y'all to welcome my broadcast colleague, my good friend. I love this man, and I love working with this man. Mark Farina joins me now. Good afternoon, Mark.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend.
on this Sunday afternoon.
Oh, it's a great Sunday afternoon. Now, why don't you just tell the people what happened at Chicago State Friday night? Because there's no way I can set this up.
Well, let's actually go back a couple days earlier. You had the semifinal round in the Chicago Public League boys basketball championship tournament. In that semifinal round, you had three teams that I think were expected to get there, namely Whitney Young and Curie, the Whitney Young Dolphins and the Curie Condors, and also the Orr Spartans were kind of expected to be there. The sleeper, if you will, would have been the Hyde Park Thunderbirds. They wound up making the quarterfinals. So what you had was kind of an interesting matchup of division foes in both semifinal games. You had Hyde Park and Curie, who were from the Red South and Red Central, and then you had from the Red West division, you had Orr and Whitney Young. So two games where the teams were very familiar with each other, had played each other a couple times during the season, and I think as expected, both those games went down to the wire,
right,
and both those games were decided by 2 points. So it was a great setup now going into Friday's championship game, having watched, and in my case announced, these two really good, hard-fought, great defensive in particular games. I thought the defensive intensity was about as good as you can possibly get. So now the much anticipated game has been anticipated since practically last year,
right?
Featuring on Friday. And here you got Cliff Alexander, the stud center from Curie, who has been one of the two most highly recruited big men in the country, and who just signed with Kansas to play for Bill Self and the Jayhawks. And on the other side, you've got Whitney Young and Jalil Okafor, who just signed to play at Duke with Mike Krzyzewski and the Blue Devils. Incredibly hyped. One of the biggest hype games because of the matchup, and suddenly you've got this matchup on Friday at Chicago State's Jones Convocation Center.
Now, with these two, Cliff Alexander and Jalil Okafor, did you get the feeling that it would come down to these two watching how the regular season and the playoffs were shaping up?
Oh, absolutely, because you've got two dominant centers. Now, they're dominant in kind of different ways. I would say Alexander's kind of he's almost a physical beast in that he is so strong, and so from a physical standpoint, I mean he's like a tank coming through, but also has a pretty decent scoring touch. Okafor, on the other hand, is a guy who I think has tremendous footwork and has a great kind of almost a soft way to the bucket, and then puts down the thundering dunks when he gets them. So you got two great centers, two great big men who clearly can dominate a game and be a presence that would be a real difference maker.
And the difference maker, well, there were quite a few difference makers in that game. Mark Farina joining me here on the ASN Scoreboard Show, make our debut episode. Now, just get to this game. How did it go down, my friend?
Well, really, the surprise was really the first about 10 minutes of the game, or not 10 minutes, but maybe about the first 6 minutes of the game. Joseph Stamps, a senior guard, one of the best in the state, he goes on a tear, scores the first 13 points for Curie.
Wow.
But Curie stays in the game. I mean, Whitney Young stays in the game, and the battle was brewing between Alexander and Okafor. And then all of a sudden, Okafor, towards the end of the first half, gets into foul trouble. And that really sets things up for the second half. And one of the guys who is another big man, but more of a shooting forward at 6'9", senior Paul White, who will play at Georgetown for the Hoyas next season. He had to now step up in the big man role. And I thought he did a wonderful job. He was smart enough to realize that he couldn't go toe-to-toe in a physical confrontation with Alexander.
Right.
And here's a little bit of a wild card. White was playing hurt. My understanding was he had a back injury of some sort, like a hip flexor. So he was, in a sense, playing almost on one leg. And you could see he was limping a bit. But quite frankly, I don't think it really affected his play. He had a number of nice soft jumpers from the free throw line or in the paint, and he helped keep them in the ballgame. Miles Reynolds, the guard for Whitney Young, did a fine job as well, hitting some nice shots. But sooner or later, without Okafor, he was going to play a role.
And how did this game end up? Well,
it didn't end up for a while. It wound up going a record 4 overtimes.
Wow.
Part of the reason why I went into overtime each time was that Curie got the tips and then went into a stall trying to draw Whitney Young out of their zone defense. And they stalled in all 4 of the overtimes, they stalled for a minute and a half to 2 minutes plus,
right,
of the 4-minute overtimes.
And with 4-minute
and they had a couple chances to win.
And with 4-minute overtimes, folks, in high school ball, there's not a shot clock involved, at least in IHSA play. There's not a shot clock involved, so they can actually go and use this stall tactic.
Well, let's take a step back. Curie should have won it in regulation. They were up by 6 with about a minute left in the game. But Whitney Young was able to come back and actually send it in overtime on a 3-point jumper by Reynolds at the buzzer to send it in OT the first time.
Wow.
And then they did it again. I believe it was Erwin Henry who hit the 3 to send it into the second overtime. So you talk about drama and last-minute dramatic. It was unbelievable.
And it dripped out, and Curie won in 4 overtimes, so they claim their first city championship under Coach Michael Oliver. And what does this do for Curie finally getting over the hump?
Well, wait a second. You forgot one more point.
Oh, really?
The most dramatic point of the game.
An unheralded player
Joseph
hit
Stamps.
the game winner.
Yes, Joseph Stamps, the guard who had scored the first 13 points for Curie, finally fouls out with about 2 minutes left to go, about 2:30 left to go in the 4th overtime. I believe he scored 28 points to lead all scorer.
Okay.
Earlier, Okafor had already fouled out in the regulation, so he wasn't a factor. So a senior guard by the name of Kamar Marshall comes in. Now, he had been a starter earlier in the season and had played quite a bit.
Right.
But towards the last month of the season, he'd been sitting on the bench quite a bit for Coach Michael Oliver. He comes off the bench, has not played at all in the game. And the clock winds down. He gets the ball thrown to him in the corner, hits the three at the buzzer, or basically at the buzzer to win it.
Okay, so
there was
buzzer
still 9 tenths of a second left.
So buzzer beaters all over the place. And how was the crowd in that game at Chicago State on Friday?
It was absolutely electric. It was the kind of crowd that you would hope for in a championship game. The arena seats about 7,000, and I'd say it was about 5,800 in attendance.
Wow.
And the student sections in particular, on both ends of the court were just as enthusiastic and as into the game as you can get.
Yeah, I believe it. Because I did the championship 2 years ago with Simeon and Curie, and that joint was jumping. And it always is for the CPO championship game. I told this story on the morning show. I remember doing the first championship game that was played at the United Center in 2000 with Westinghouse and Whitney Young, and 20,000 people got in there. So you have to know, for a championship game, it's going to be absolutely electric, and this was no exception. Mark Farina joining me on the Gigahertz hotline for the ASN Scoreboard Show. Now, I promised an announcement at the start of the show that involves my partner, Mark Farina, and I told him when he called him that I was going to pull a fast one on him. So here it is. A week ago, he asked me if there was any movement on us getting the CCAC baseball game of the week, and I told him there was none. Well, thanks to a late development last night with our buddy Dave Laquetta, the CCAC baseball game of the week will happen. We're getting all the final details in place, and Mark and I will go around the colleges of the CCAC and call some baseball, and if all falls into place, we will also take it to Oil City Stadium in May and follow the postseason. Surprise!
Hey, I'm happy. I think it's great. We had a great relationship the last 2 seasons with Roosevelt University.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because of all the budget issues with them, they decided to cut back, which happens all the time in broadcasting. It does.
But you know what? We still get to see them with this Game of the Week package we're going to put together. We still get to see them. We get to see Robert Morris. Just watch the website for all the details for the CCAC Game of the Week, and that's the fast one I wanted to pull on my friend. Mark Farina joining me here as we kick off the ASN Sunday Scoreboard Show here on the Arena Sports Network. And what a ball game that you had on Friday.
It was something else. It's one of those games that I'll always remember. People are going to talk about it for decades. Tamar Marshall is an automatic legend in Curie High School athletics. He will wind up being invited to more events over the years, depending on what Cliff Alexander does in his career.
I believe it.
It's gonna be something else. I would love to be in his shoes.
Well, congratulations to the Curie Condors for winning the 2014 City Championship. And, Mark, I thank you very much for joining me, my friend. A great conversation as always, and I'm looking forward to calling some baseball with you.
Sounds good. And then we get into the city playoffs and the state playoffs.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, my friend.
Take care.
That is Mark Farina, and I thank him for joining me. And we're going to pause for a break. And when we come back, I'll tell you about a game that I had a chance to cover on Friday, which is setting up the Indiana State playoffs. It involves Marquette Catholic, and they set a school record. Tell you in a moment on the ASN Scoreboard Show.
You do a lot of thinking on a bike about your life, family, your dreams. One of my dreams came to me on a bike, to open up my own shop. So what happens when you complete a dream? Well, you just start thinking of the next.
Visit DrastichAgency.com or call 219-945-3040 and ask Joel Drasich how you can get all of your insurance under one roof.
What is the IHSA?
For more than 100 years, the Illinois High School Association and member schools have provided opportunities for students to participate in interscholastic athletics and activities, which produce vital education benefits.
Did you know the IHSA offers statewide championship series in 14 sports for boys and girls and sponsors statewide championships in 7 non-athletic activities? Did you know the IHSA licenses more than 10,000 contest officials in 13 different sports and that more than 300,000 students participate in IHSA sports and activities every year? Did you know activity programs only account for 1 to 3% of the overall education budget in a school? Did you know the nation's first sportsmanship mascot was created by the IHSA in 1997 with the birth of Attitude? Did you know students who participate in activity programs tend to have higher grades, better attendance, lower dropout rates, and fewer discipline problems than students that don't participate? Did you know activity programs provide valuable lessons for practical life situations? Teamwork, self-discipline, time management, dealing with adversity, and communication skills?
Now that you know, get in the game. Be a fan and join the fun. Support your local high school programs.
This message has been brought to you by the IHSA. Challenge yourself.
Back here on the ASN Scoreboard Show on this Sunday. My thanks to Mark Farina joining us on the Gigahertz Hotline. And if you have a story that you want us to relate about high school or college sports in the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana region, or even across the country, give us an email. Give us an email at info@thearenasportsnetwork.com. A couple folks listening in also. My buddy John Fitzgerald, associated with Marquette Catholic. Jeff Escal from Sports World Radio. Josh Lopez, my producer on the morning show. Thank you all for listening in. Please spread the word because we're going to carry this into the state playoffs in Illinois and Indiana. Now, this past Friday, Marquette Catholic faced off against the Wheeler Bearcats with a chance to move one step closer in clinching the Greater South Shore Conference regular season title. They did that and then some as they absolutely blew out the Bearcats and recorded a 100-point game. They beat them 100-59, and Donovan Garlett stopped by with me after the game for this post-game interview.
Well, what do you think about that performance by your kids tonight?
Well, it was a good game all around. We got 14 guys in there. We were able to use every single player that had a uniform on. We went out and we played our game tonight. We really played good, solid team defense. We stopped a lot of drives. We gave up in the second quarter there. We gave up an 8-0 run. And that was just not because we weren't playing hard, but we were overplaying, actually. I know that sounds crazy, but we were almost playing too hard, trying to go for steals. And I think the excitement just got to the kids.
And they made the adjustment in the third period by staying in their lanes and making sure that they, play the lanes that they're supposed to. And they really were able to turn it on in the third period.
Absolutely. Our boys really, everybody got in the second half, and everybody did something positive. There was not one kid that went in there and didn't do something good. Very, very happy about the overall performance tonight, and look forward to hopefully winning a conference championship tomorrow night at Calumet.
You get Zeke back in the lineup. How's it feel? What's the difference with Zeke being back in the lineup after being out with an injury?
With Zeke back, we've scored. That's 3 games in a row. We've almost scored 100 points, 95 or more. So obviously that shows you the difference.
Big difference with Ryan Fazekas being back in the lineup. He had 27 points, and the Blazers indeed win the Greater South Shore Conference Championship as they absolutely drilled Calumet 94-49. It was senior night at the Shoals Student Center. A great time in Michigan City as the Blazers win the Greater South Shore Conference regular season championship, and they have one more regular season game. They close against Elkhart Memorial. That is Friday the 28th, and then they get a week off, and they play the winner of Covenant Christian and Washington Township. They'll play Friday, March 7th, and that'll be at Morgan Township, and we are going to be there for that one. Again, let me say hi to my producer, Josh Lopez, checking in, along with Jeff Escal, my buddy John Fitzgerald, checking in as well. Of course, this was the inaugural season that we had Marquette Catholic on the Arena Sports Network airwaves, and it was a great time. We covered volleyball and boys basketball, but girls basketball had a bit of a good season. Also, they welcomed a new coach in Abby Scooby, and she sat down with me as we taped this interview at the Shoals Center on Friday. How was your first season as a coach? I know it was a big transition for you, but how was your first season?
It was a great learning experience. Obviously I've never been on that side of the game. But for my first year, I thought it went pretty well, and I thought I had great dedication from the girls, which is really all I could ask for in the first season.
I know I've asked you this before, but when you came in, what was the first thing that you wanted to establish with not only with yourself as the coach, but with your team?
I wanted to establish an identity. I wanted to bring Marquette girls basketball program on the map. Make them something to talk about, something for other teams to say, they play hard. That's really what I wanted to do. So.
The record doesn't belie the effort that your girls put in, and even the first round of sectionals, being in the playoffs and having that experience and taking all of that into next year. I know there's a lot you girls are looking forward to.
Yeah, the last game was really the greatest thing I could ask for as my first year as a coach, because what I saw then was truly heart and passion and desire to be out on the court and to play hard and give it their all. And, I really think they couldn't have put in a better effort in that game. It just happened. Washington Township was better, and they're the better team, and they won that game. So you win some, you lose some.
What was the biggest part of your experience as a player at Loyola that you were able to bring to Marquette Catholic for your rookie season?
Being a team leader. I'm very vocal, and since I was a freshman at Loyola, I've really had a voice on the team, and that's something that I wanted to carry over onto this team, because I think that's what every team needs to be successful, is a leader and someone who's going to stand up and, talk to the team and tell them what they're doing wrong.
When you got to know your team, and when you got here, you said you were looking to establish an identity. Tell me about a couple of players that throughout the course of the season began to stand out for you and help establish that identity for the Blazers.
Soraya Johnson is the first one that really stood out to me. She put in the extra work. She was in the mornings. She was a really coachable player, and one of the first ones to ask, when does postseason start? So, that's always exciting to hear, too, that they're not burnt out. They're not ready to quit, because you got 4 years of basketball to play in high school, and you really don't want to waste a moment of it.
Is it still going to be a lot of identity building going into next season, or do you want to add an extra step to that?
It is. It's going to take a couple years to really form an identity, and forming an identity just simply means, having some gym rats on the team who want to get in, put some shots up, put the work in. That gets, other members of your team in on the gym, and then you have this unit, this cohesive unit that's all working together at the same goal and really forming the identity that I'm looking for.
How did you feel after you got that first win of the year?
That was great, nail biter. Great game to start out my coaching experience with. Great start off to the season, confidence booster. We won in by buzzer beater, so, it doesn't get any sweeter than that, really.
Anything else that you're looking forward to establishing next year to really help put the name of Marquette Catholic girls basketball on the map?
I just really want to get our fundamentals down. I thought this was a really big learning year for everyone, and they've got the knowledge, they've got the basketball knowledge behind the fundamentals. It's just putting it all together, and that's really something that I want to do next year. Run more offensive plays, change up defenses, put some press in, just really build off of this year's basic knowledge that they've established.
My thanks to Abby Scooby for that interview. We taped that Friday before the boys took on Wheeler High School on Friday night. I'll have some more with Abby Scooby and the rest of the coaches at Marquette Catholic, because beginning next year we're going to expand our coverage. We're going to include soccer. This year we're going to add baseball, and we're just going to keep adding, because Marquette Catholic is becoming one of the schools that we are really going to focus in on. And also there are a couple other schools in LaPorte County that we are going to focus in on as well. We continue on the ASN Scoreboard Show, and last week Josh and I had a chance to cover a terrific game at Exelon Pavilion. Which game is that, and what happened? I'll tell you that in a deuce. This is the ASN Scoreboard Show on the Arena Sports Network.
Want to get your rankings in the truest form? Want to get the best college news without all the fluff? Then tune in to Swamp's Collegiate Sports Show. Join Kevin the Swamp Rat Horan as he ranks all the collegiate sports, from football to basketball and baseball to cross country, soccer, and so much more. Don't forget to visit www.kevinhoranrankings.com and sign up for his newsletter buzzing across the country. So if you want the best college news and rankings and see how the pros are outsmarted, tune in to Swamp's Collegiate Sports Show. The Swamp Rat ranks them right every Wednesday night at 8 on the Arena Sports Network.
Listen closely. It's the sound of a typical Friday night at your local high school football field. Or a Sunday afternoon at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's the sound of teenagers stretching, growing, and developing the skills they need to get the most from life. Or of the Indianapolis Colts chasing another Super Bowl title. Either way, it's the sound of people rallying around the home team and feeling good about themselves and their community. It's more than a typical Friday night at your local high school football field or a Sunday afternoon at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's communities all across Indiana coming together and reaping the benefits of sport. The IHSAA and your Indianapolis Colts bringing communities together. The Indianapolis Colts are proud sponsors of the IHSAA State Football Tournament.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Okay.
So, what do you do on Sundays?
I usually try to make it to the gym and play video games.
Go to the zoo, and then you have lunch and nap, and there's some diapers.
Between ballet classes and...
I can totally imagine you doing ballet.
Yeah, well, not me, but taking my two girls to ballet.
Did you know TCF Bank is open Sundays? How would that make life easier?
That would mean a lot.
I do like to have the bank open on Sunday, and that's one of the reasons I use TCF.
I completely agree. It's a bummer when you realize at the end of the week that you have something to take care of and the bank's not open.
Yeah. But TCF Bank is open on Sundays.
I can't believe it.
It's amazing.
That is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So you might go and talk to a person on Sunday?
Yeah, I like talking to persons.
You know what? I can tell that about you. TCF Bank is open 7 days, including Sundays. Surprised? Come into the home of free checking and open an account today. For locations and more information, call 1-855-OPEN-TCF or go to tcfbank.com. TCF Bank. Surprisingly convenient. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to the ASN Scoreboard Show on this Sunday. We're presented by ASN Sports Travel. Want to learn how to travel and make money at the same time? Go to thearenasportsnetwork.com. Go to /ASN Scoreboard Show and click on the logo, and you'll find out more. And there will be more information about that as we go along. Vince, let me pay a little tribute to you, a former basketball player. He is very proud of the boys and girls teams. He spent a few years as girls basketball assistant coach. So a former Blazer, seeing the Blazer Nation rise, that's got to be a great time. And speaking of a great time, Josh Lopez and I called a terrific game at Exelon Pavilion when Gary Comer claimed the 2014 Noble Network Championship over Johnson College Prep in a very spirited game. Dennis Gordon picked up 17 points. He also picked up the MVP trophy. And Kyle Petrie stopped to chat with me during the post game.
I feel great. I mean, I feel great for the guys, really. Like, I know what it's like to play high school basketball and, come up short. So it's so great to see guys who, we don't have much gym time or anything like that. The guys get up at, some of them 4:30 in the morning to be there every day, negative 20, negative 30 degrees. And I told the guys, like, if you guys play hard, it's all us this year, and they did.
What can you say coming off of the win Wednesday night against Bulls Prep, taking down the two-time defending champions, and then riding that momentum into tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Bulls in the past, and Bulls and Johnson, we knew the trophy was going to go through them. I told the guys, in December, I was like, we have to beat those two teams. They're extremely well coached. They're extremely disciplined. They have a lot of talent, and they play as a team. So I knew it was going to come through, and, the guys have been circling these 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on their calendar for 3 months.
Well, what can you say about the way your team both teams came out very, very nervous. There were a lot of turnovers at the beginning, but you had to get the feeling when Dennis Gordon's first three-point goal went down, it just kick-started you guys.
Yeah, Dennis Gordon is one of those maybe once in every 10, 20-year type players as far as the mentality goes. Dennis wants the ball when we're down. He'll share the ball. He can score. He can pass. He plays really good defense. He's been the catalyst for our team's offense all season. And, every time Dennis shoots the ball, it's going to go in. That's where we wanted the ball. The other guys know that. The other guys played their roles. And a lot of other guys stepped up big and hit shots when they needed to, which was great.
Travis Bonaparte really came up big for you guys. Again, 16 rebounds this evening. 10 of them came on the offensive end. He had a lot of defensive rebounds on Wednesday. Tonight it was the offensive rebounds that carried you guys to the tune of a 34-15 advantage. You guys really crashed the boards very well.
Yeah, Derek, Byron, and Travis, really the big three guys inside. They really hit the glass really hard. Tonight, Travis has been doing it all season. He's been doing it for 3 years. This is his third year. He's a 3-year starter on varsity. He's been a double-digit rebounder his whole career. He's an excellent shot blocker. And tonight, he hit a couple of big baskets, too. He's got that mid-range jump shot. So he was great.
One final note. How does it feel to finish this season on top?
It feels great. I mean, I'm so happy for the guys, really. I'm an old man these days, so my playing days are behind me. But it's great to see guys. We're such a senior-heavy group, and to send them out with a win in front of hundreds of screaming fans, hundreds of kids from the school. It was such good support.
How about this crowd for both sides? How about this crowd?
Yeah,
tonight?
that's a noble thing right there, and I got to give it up to Johnson and their fans and their coaching staff. They are a class program, and they came out hard too. They brought everybody they had. We brought everybody we had, and it was an amazing atmosphere for a basketball game. It was great.
And Josh made a point to me during the broadcast tonight. You would think this game was being played in front of 20,000 fans, the way as raucous as this crowd was this evening. They came out extremely, and like you said, credit to both sides and credit to the entire network. Both of these fans' bases came out really, really hyped this evening.
Yeah. I mean, at Nova, we do academics seriously, and we're starting to figure out how to do sports seriously. Our kids take it very serious, but they're professional. The adults are professional. It's a great environment for basketball. It's a great thing especially for the south side of Chicago, that for a while it's had a negative reputation about high schools and high school kids. It's good to see these kids, 2 south side schools, come out and really represent what class programs are like and what quality athletics is like.
Kyle Petrie, the winning coach of the Gary Comer Catamounts, they win the 2014 Noble Network Championship. What a run. I am proud of you. I say thank you. Thank you for a terrific ball game. And, hey, let's hook up and do this again next year, my friend.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
And it was Kyle Petrie, the head coach of Gary Comer College Prep. They won the 2014 Noble Network Championship. Today, the pairings for the IHSAA playoffs in Indiana were released. We'll get to that next week, where the teams in Northwest Indiana are concerned. Gave you Marquette Catholic's situation. After Friday, they will have a week off, and they will play the winner of Covenant Christian and Washington Township at Morgan Township. Friday, March 7th, it is a 6 o'clock tip-off time. And we'll have that for you here on the Arena Sports Network. And let me thank the good folks at Marquette, including Fitz, Tony Midas, the athletic director, Coach Donovan Garlitz, and all the folks there that supported our coverage of Marquette Catholic Athletics. Pause for a break. When we come back, I had an interesting conversation with a good friend of mine, Tim McKinney, about a situation that is happening, and unfortunately is happening, at Homewood Flossmoor.
Listen closely.
I didn't mean to hit that button early. I'm sorry. I had a conversation with my buddy Tim McKinney about a situation happening at Homewood Flossmoor where they were forced to forfeit not only their playoff game, but their season. You'll hear that conversation in its entirety next.
Listen closely. It's the sound of a typical Friday night at your local high school football field. Or a Sunday afternoon at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's the sound of teenagers stretching, growing, developing the skills they need to get the most from life. Or of the Indianapolis Colts chasing another Super Bowl title. Either way, it's the sound of people rallying around the home team and feeling good about themselves and their community. It's more than a typical Friday night at your local high school football field or a Sunday afternoon at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's communities all across Indiana coming together and reaping the benefits of sport. The IHSAA and your Indianapolis Colts bringing communities together. The Indianapolis Colts are proud sponsors of the IHSAA State Football Tournament.
At Strachan Van Til, we think differently about groceries. We always have. So what does that mean? It means better, fresher, focused on you. Your neighborhood store that gives you more. It's quality, selection, the variety you want. Choice meats, deli, bakery, your one-stop shop. Everything on your list and all for less. With the savings you deserve and unbeatable service, that's different. That's built around you, and that's your Strachan Van Til.
At Midwest Interventional Spine Specialists, you can trust in Northwest Indiana's first team in pain management. For more than a decade, the MIST team has proudly served the residents of Northwest Indiana, providing accurate diagnosis and innovative treatments for spinal pain and many other types of acute and chronic pain. Each of our physicians has achieved board certification in as many as 3 different specialties. They are actively involved in ongoing research that keeps their practice on the leading edge of the profession and are often called upon by area hospitals to lecture on pain management. Over the years, each has been recognized as a leader in the field and earned a strong reputation for delivering excellent results and genuine compassionate care. To them, nothing is more rewarding than helping patients with severe pain regain the kind of normal, active life that the rest of us take for granted. For more information, pay us a visit at 8840 Calumet Avenue, Suite 103 in Munster, or give us a call at 219-836-7246. The Midwest Interventional Spine Specialist, first in proven pain solutions, first in patient care.
Right back at you on the Arena Sports Network Scoreboard Show on this Sunday. We're presented by the ASN Sports Travel Agency. Want to travel and save money and make money at the same time? Where can you do all that? The ASN Sports Travel Agency. Go to the arenasportsnetwork.com/ASN Scoreboard Show. Click on the Sports Travel logo, and you will get all of the information, and there will be more coming throughout the course of our programming. Well, earlier this week on the morning show, Snowman in the Morning, Tim McKinney joined me for a conversation about a very controversial situation at Homewood Flossmoor High School here in Illinois. Now, the situation is one coach left to go to another school and took all of his players with him. That made a player that was supposed to get some varsity playing time a little angry. So they launched a lawsuit. And a lot of things came down, including the hammer from the IHSA. This is the conversation I had with my good buddy Tim McKinney.
Anthony Smith, who is, and anyone who's familiar with girls basketball knows, he ruled the roost at Bolingbrook for a long time. So when he came over to Homewood Flossmoor, something strange happened. A lot of the players he had at Bolingbrook came with him. Well, the IHSA decided to put the hammer down and made HF forfeit their entire season within an hour of them taking on TF North in their playoff opener. And in a sad finish to what was a great season, but the hammer came down. Let me come to Tim McKinney, who has helped me cover high school basketball in the last couple of years here in the Chicagoland area. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Well, I think I think a lot of folks think, the penalty of it was pretty harsh. I mean, the IHSA really, as you said, put the hammer down on Homewood Flossmoor, but you look at it, and I guess what's the saying? Kind of when you smell you smell something smishy or a dead rat, you see it. I mean, I mean the flags were out there. I did have Bolingbrook, the former Bolingbrook team last year a couple of times myself, but. You see it, you all of a sudden, Homewood Flossmoor courts the coach over to come over there to be the head coach. You got a great situation going on in Bolingbrook. We don't know all the behind the scenes, or maybe if there were some, things with the administration, or maybe he thought it was just time to move on. But you got such a great thing going on over there that he probably could have stayed there forever. Then all of a sudden, you jump ship to Homewood Flossmoor, and you have 6 girls transfer. 4 of them are from your school.
Right.
How all of a sudden would 4 girls say, "Oh, I don't like living in Bolingbrook no more. I'm going to decide to live in Homewood, Flossmoor, one of the areas." They had one of the other transfers was from Marist. What was that? It was a Bria. You had Marist a couple times. I know quite a bit, Brian. One of the transfers was from Marist as well. So, I mean, those things were red flags. But if you look more at the ruling, that really didn't maybe trigger it. What triggered a lot of the investigation was the lawsuit put in by one of the parents of one of the students at Homewood Flossmoor, who thought because of this, her daughter was denied the right to play basketball. She's lived in the area all her life and can't play for her local school because all of a sudden all these imports came in and that pushed them to the side. But in the IHSA ruling, there really wasn't anything more about the residency part of it at this point. I don't know if they're going to continue to pursue that, but a lot of it was more on the activities of the program during the off season. I remember Chris Head got hit with this big time when
he was arrested
during his brief tenure at Proviso West, when he moved over to Proviso West from his successful tenure in the public league.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it was based upon the activities during the off season because the head coaches are limited on what they can do in the summer. You can't have practices off site away from the school, or quote unquote they can't be considered like they are practices or contact. There were some things from one of his one of the summer leagues that the kids partaked in that he signed in saying he was a coach. He states that he watched the game from the crowd and didn't coach. Obviously, he can't be coaching the team. Sometimes those things are loosely enforced because I think a lot of folks more than Anthony Smith do that, but obviously because of the situation, he pretty much put a big target on his head, and everyone was going to be after him. And then also some of the text messages that were sent, that he had sent out, and some of these text messages were sent out to players that were considered technically at that point not Homewood Flossmoor students. So there's a lot of other things beyond that kind of contributed to all of this as well, Brian.
I had read this piece in the Chicago Tribune. Marty Hickman, the IHSA's executive director, told the Tribune that the IHSA had reached an agreement with the school district Tuesday night to suspend Smith and 11 of the team's 17 players, but still allow the others to play in the state tournament. But the deal broke down Wednesday when the district decided to appeal, leading the IHSA to impose heavier sanctions, including that the 20-2 team had to forfeit all of its victories for the season. It's not unprecedented because remember East St. Louis football from 2010 before they got started in the state playoffs. So this is not unprecedented, but the punishment had to come down. I will say that.
And the IHSA, I know they're probably not known as the best of organizations in the world due to enforcement of their policies. They get a lot of riff like the NCAA does with a lot of things. Obviously, kind of the way they handled the Seton Academy situation, they took a lot of heat on. A lot of people are giving, a lot of people I know who I've talked to about this, Brian, and that I've seen or through email or social networking, have ripped the IHSA for really putting down the hammer. But I can go, not to be devil's advocate here, but I can see from the IHSA standpoint, if they let the appeal process go through and let Homewood Flossmoor continue to play, and then they ended up seeing all these findings true, I don't think they want to have a vacated championship.
Right.
If they would let Homewood Flossmoor if they would have been kept on playing, won the regional, obviously they would have, had a great chance of going downstate this year and doing a lot of damage. And if they would have won the championship and then they ended up finding all this to go down afterwards, I think that's the situation they didn't want to have. They didn't want to have like a University of Memphis a grade scandal vacated championship kind of deal.
Right. They really don't want that. Gene McInerney, school board member, said the punishment was unfair to the players, but she learned that the decision to go to Bloomington to appeal for lesser sanctions backfired and ended the team's state tourney hopes. She said, quote, "I think the punishment far outstrips the crime. I think they went down on behalf of the girls and they made it worse," close quote. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think I can understand her point from it is that the players a lot of times in cases like this, end up taking the fall unfairly because of the acts of adults. And I think that was the point for the board and a lot of people, is that it was the acts of adults that caused this for the kids, and the kids are the ones who end up getting the punishment.
Right.
I know that, the players don't know the rules, but again, if their parents knew what was going on, obviously we know Anthony Smith is the big person to shift a lot of this on. You really feel bad for them, and I think the IHSA was put in a position that even though maybe these kids didn't know what was going on or had no wrongdoing, maybe all of them did. We'll never know. Maybe we'll get our friend Geraldo Rivera to investigate it further. But so we're only going off the info we all know. We may not know quite everything, so I can see why they would think that. But still, the IHSA believes if they would have allowed these athletes and these students to still play, that would have cast a dark shadow over this. So let the ones that they knew that were legit play roll the dice. They would have had 6, but I don't know how good those 6 were. But I know I was at Westinghouse last night and saw Dorothy Gators win $9.99 with only 7 players. So if you got the talent, you can win no matter if you have 6, 7, 8, 30. It doesn't matter.
Well, and I've seen teams, in boys and girls basketball win with a short roster. I still cover girls basketball. Covered it for years. I've seen teams win with a short roster. Tim McKinney joining me on the Gigahertz Hotline, talking high school sports here to lead off Snowman in the Morning. And this, I can't say this is an unprecedented story, but at the same time, it's a hard-hitting story. Homewood Flossmoor stripped of their entire season and not given a chance to play for a state championship. Let me have the thoughts of you guys. Tweet us at Snow Morning Show and let us know your thoughts about this. And you mentioned something that's very, very true. Coach Smith could have stayed at Bolingbrook forever with the way he put that program on the map. And all of a sudden, he decides to jump ship and come to Homewood Flossmoor. It's those sudden changes that put up a lot of red flags, and unfortunately, right now, in the time of year that all the kids work for, the team's paying for it.
Oh, exactly, and not to stir up anything else, but just from some of the inner channels and other people I know from that way during his tenure there was some speculation that was going on there as well.
Wow.
But the thing is, you don't have a way to prove it. And a lot of people have said this as well, and I agree, and I mentioned this myself. This goes on a lot.
Yeah, it does.
At a lot of levels, a lot of sports. It's a shame. There's teams that may not do as well, or maybe they don't win, but they might have a solid player here and there.
Right.
And some of the elite level teams might try and pick that player, or through inner channels try and lure a player over to add him onto their squad. Those things happen. They do. But the thing is, no one really hasn't found a way
to blow the whistle,
really pinpoint it, or if you do pursue it, you're considered, you're spoiled rapes, that you're just doing it in spite. So it's a double-edged sword when you do things like that. But Brian, I truly think those things happen. I covered during high school season football. The Proviso East. I had them a few times. Not a football juggernaut, but they had got a new head coach. He used to be the assistant over at Bennett. We're kind of talking, and said I'm trying to build the program, but it's hard because a lot of the guys who are quality players, they'll lose them to the Catholic League or the private schools, or suddenly their residency changes and they're somewhere else. Because he had a kid, he said, I had a kid who's going to be a good solid player, and all of a sudden he's playing for Hinsdale South.
Yep.
How can you all of a sudden move from Maywood to Darien? So parents must have made a whole lot of money that year.
Yeah, they joined. They jump. The kids jump around a lot when they see a chance to win, and it's ingrained in the kids as long as they're grown up. And I had a similar situation when I was covering Whitney Young. Marcus Jordan, that name should ring a bell to a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
He played at Loyola with his brother Jeffrey for the first 2 years, and anyone who knows, anyone who remembers the name Marcus Jordan knows he is the youngest son of the man, the legend, Michael Jordan. He and Jeffrey played at Loyola for 2 years, and then Marcus played his last 2 at Whitney Young, and that was a sudden change, and there were a lot of folks that cried foul on that. So you made a very good point that this goes on all the time. You also made another good point, and I'd love for you to expand on this. The teams, the elite teams that get these players that jump around from county to county, and then you have the players and the teams that try to do it the right way, and they wind up getting the short end of the stick. You made a post to that nature that I read on Facebook last night, and it was a great point. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think, that's the case, because I think there's a lot of people, who work their tails off and try and do things the right way. But obviously there's those isolated folks. You speculate, you have a feeling, you know who they are, who you all of a sudden their teams are outstanding. They have players from certain places that you think, how do they get these players over here? Like what I do at the junior college with Trident, helping out their teams. For example, our women's basketball program has struggled quite a bit the last few years. I can recall, and I won't name the team. We had our team wasn't all that great, but we played a really good game that night.
Right.
I had a couple good quality players, and had a feeling when that game ended, just walking down that line, seeing the assistant coach of the opposing team trying to talk to one of our players.
Right.
And I shoot her right, don't even talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach said, I just only want to know how her high school was doing.
Yeah,
I
right.
said, I bet that's what you want to know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I have seen this. As long as you and I have covered high school sports here in Chicago, you and I see this all the time. All the time with these coaches.
I think in the public league, it's notorious. It probably happens all the time in the public league.
Oh, hell yeah. It happens all the time in the public league. I've seen it. You've seen it. A lot of other compadres in sports media here in Chicago have seen it. It happens all the time. This is just one of the times where the red flags were too red to ignore.
There was
with
one
Homewood
other case,
Flossmoor.
Brian, by me this year between Proviso East and Proviso West on the girls' side. Proviso West had an outstanding freshman guard last year. She's probably going to go Division I. She had an outstanding season. And then all of a sudden, this year, she transferred over to Proviso East. And they had to go through the same process with the IHSA. IHSA had to rule on the eligibility, rule on the residency. They said it was legit. I'm not saying that Proviso East did any wrongdoing trying to lure a player, but just suddenly how, it could have been amongst the players, parents, other people that may have influenced them, decide, hey, let's jump ship. Those things happen. I know the Proviso East coach said, I had no knowledge she was around until the girls started saying such and such player was enrolled at our school, and that kind of caused a little controversy here in our area that made the Proviso West, Proviso East game a little bit more enticing than it was already is on a yearly basis. So these things happen everywhere, but it's starting to become more of a growing trend.
Yeah.
And I think it started more when the private schools were able to get more power and more leeway to get players, that the restrictions were limited on them.
Yeah.
And pretty much they can grow themselves into monster programs. Like, look at what Montini can do on a yearly basis as an example.
And that's the thing, because you mentioned the person who Montini has built themselves into a power, and they're gonna be a power for a long time. And the key element, and you just mentioned it, that these private schools get a lot of power. They have gotten a lot of power now from the IHSA, and not just here in Illinois. Let's make this general. It's happening across the country. I got a friend in New Jersey that mentioned this very same subject in a poll question. So with this trend, how disturbing must it get before some whistles are blown?
Well, I think the more it happens, I think this one with Homewood Flossmoor was just so obvious that it was so hard for no one not to do anything about
right.
it. This one was this one was like a softball hung up with the baseball bat ready to swing and hit a home run if no one wanted to pursue it. I mean, you when you have 4 players like that move, I mean, I can maybe see if one did it, then maybe that's not as bad when you have 4.
Right.
And
at the same time.
Programs.
All at the same time.
Exactly. And I look at these things, and I'm and I told you last night I had I was at Westinghouse to watch St. Joe's and Marshall play for the regional championship, and I'm watching Dorothy Gators there on the bench pick up her 999th win. Has she ever had any problem with her program in all her years with 33 decades of coaching? I don't think I've heard anybody saying that she's done anything in the wrong.
Right.
Anything in the wrongdoing, and now she's kind of in the latter portion of her career. Maybe she's not getting the players like she used to or the teams like she used to, but still she finds a way to get it done, and I can respect that. And then you see these other teams trying to stockpile these players to win, and then you kind of compare that, and I'm watching Dorothy Gators last night, and that was back to your question earlier to me, that was what my post was about, sitting there watching what Dorothy Gators was doing last night, kind of what put that point home for me last night.
Yeah, the legendary Dorothy Gators, and I've done many a Marshall game with Coach Gators, and, she said to me many times, about doing it the right way. And she's done nothing
I talked to her
but.
for a couple minutes last night.
Right.
She's always win or lose, classy and gracious, and you can respect that, and you can say, hey, you want to be a part of something like that, but then you see some of these other places kind of go, okay, well, they're all of a sudden winning out of the blue or doing this and doing that.
Right.
You kind of have the thought in your head, well, are they, are they, not doing it the right way? Or, I think some places, say if, like a team that's really bad and starts winning again, if they're known to be out there working hard and doing what they're supposed to be doing, then more power to them. But, things like what, transpired with Homewood Flossmoor, I just think the IHSA maybe want to use them as an example.
Right.
We'll just start a parade of them looking into other schools and other places doing similar tactics. We'll just open a Pandora's box. Only time will tell.
Man, if this kicks open a Pandora's box, I'm almost afraid to see the results that they find. Tim McKinney joining me here on the Gigahertz Hotline, talking all things high school hoops and the Pandora's box.
That's going to be kicked wide open, and there are some teams that if they're not doing it the right way, they need to be careful. That'll wrap it up for this first edition of the ASN Scoreboard Show. We'll be back at you next Sunday. We'll take a peek inside of the Illinois and the Indiana State playoffs, and we'll take a peek at whatever you want us to take a look at. We'll have some college baseball discussion next Sunday as well. Thanks to all the folks that listen, including my friend Professor B of the Bay Area Sports Weekly out in San Francisco, Steve Willis, giving us a listen also. Thanks to all the fans that tuned us in. We'll be back with you next Sunday and it's probably going to be an expanded edition because we are taking a peek at the Illinois and the Indiana State playoffs. Thanks for listening, everybody. God bless. We'll see you next Sunday. Make your next move your best move. Good afternoon, everyone.